Hello everyone and welcome back for this new Strategus video. Today I want to keep going with some tutorials which are more aimed at experts players, but can be also interesting for newcomers. And I want to discuss about the different phases that occur in a Stratego game. So I took note. I personally identified 5 phases, and depending on how each phase go, the game may be fast, may end up in a draw, and so on. So let's see a bit how these phases go. So the first one, of course, is the opening and the first trades. So it's not like chess where you have specific opening and reactions. Opening are very different, and everyone can open as he wants in Stratego. There is no real pattern. I would say just the Greeks sometimes, that's why I call it the Greek opening, like to have a lot of pieces all together on one lane. But otherwise I didn't find really many patterns. Players sometimes open on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes in the middle, sometimes on 3 sides, sometimes just on one side. It's really, there is a really a big variety, so there's no real position that I would recommend. However, during this phase we will have the first trades, and people will have a little bit of knowledge of what your setup is. So what do you put in the first row, how you move, and make the first guesses. Usually during this phase you're not down too much in material and not up too much in knowledge. You have usually maybe one captain down, but a major, or you're I don't know, up 2 sergeants, but down a lieutenant. It's still quite even, but because you know a lot about medium pieces, you can start thinking about how to make your first attack and how your opponent is playing. Is he playing aggressive? Is he playing defensive? Is he playing just on one side, where is defending one side? Say, all this information can let you get the knowledge like, okay, which region do I want to attack? Like, do I want to attack on the left or on the right? I usually work this way, based on what I know from one side, or based on what I know to one side. I say, okay, what do I expect from the other side? And I can start already making a few assumptions. But it's still early in the game, so there is not much I can do. The real beginning of the game for me is the phase 2, which is for me the first attack or and first defense, where you will start bringing one higher piece, probably a colonel, could be Jen, could be Marsh, to take a small advantage or medium advantage, which can be interesting. So at that point you will probably have one player being down in the material and the other one being up in a material but down in knowledge. And after this, this is the first turning point. It's so one player will have the advantage, but it's not definitive. Like, a player can, the one player who is down can still come back, right? So this is the first turning point where you start showing your highest pieces and start understanding much better how your opponent works. And this is the phase where you need to follow the pieces. You need to play with the memory. Remember the memory video I made a few ago? Remember where the pieces came from, what was the area they were coming from, and what you have already known. So track the pieces, track what is known, and so on. Based on this, we start the phase 3, which I would call it the reorganizing. So once the first attack is made, either a player keeps the pressure but needs to find a way to defend his piece, or he will retreat and reorganize the pieces. And both players have to reorganize, okay, by playing on memory. And that's the point where memory is extremely important, because you need to remember everything, which piece moved, which piece you know, and the region they were coming from, if possible. And it's a bit, let's say, what some people call the boring phase, because nothing happens, it's a lot of shuffling, but it's extremely important to be ready. So I would recommend not to attack directly, but attack thinking, okay, if things go wrong, I have a defense already organized, right? So that's why you have a bit to shuffle the pieces, because I think it never happens that you have all the pieces exactly in the good position right from the beginning. You still need to move them a bit. And this phase can be extremely long, especially if no players wants to make a new step. For example, a player attacked and he is down in material, and the one up in material doesn't want to do anything. This is a step which could last extremely long, and at that point you end up in a draw, most likely, especially in a tournament. But if this is not happening, we have the second phase, and I would say the turning point of the game. I would call it like, no, so, sorry, the fourth phase, but the second attack. And at that point, based on the knowledge, based on the assumptions, based on understanding of the game, a player will attack a second time and take the real advantage, most likely, and then have a quite guaranteed win, or he will have a loss, and he will fail his second attack, and at that point it's again even, and we enter the end game. So let's say that if a player like has success in both attacks, he will most likely win. If he has a success in one attack and fail in another, then the game will be probably even, and at that point we will slowly enter the end game, which can also be thought as a second reorganizing phase, but I would call it more about positioning phase. It's when you have really few pieces and each piece matter. You start seeing the bomb structure of your opponent, understand where the flag may or may not be. You start understanding more easily where the surgeons, the miners are, and so on. During the endgame, you need to be extremely precise. You need to make no mistake, because once you lose a piece in the endgame, it's probably really time to forfeit. Now, in a tournament, you have the clock constraint. So I would say that I will make another video about the clock, but just to give a few words about it. That if you aim at a draw, the opening and the first attack will most likely open, will most likely happen. What you can do is really play on this reorganizing stuff, because if you don't have too much material known, your opponent will struggle a bit more to attack effectively. And that's the point where people can try to grab a draw if they fear their opponent, or instead push because they think they can do it. That's it. I hope this quick video is instructive to you, that it can give you a better understanding about how a game is developed. As I said, this is my understanding. Many people may disagree about it, saying that no, it's absolutely wrong what I'm saying. But I think dividing in some sequence, you may understand a bit better the game, and I encourage you to rewatch one game you liked for a reason or another, especially if you end up with really few pieces and your opponent as well, to try to cut in different phases, and you will see that most often this will quite work. And based on the phases you are in, you have to behave a bit differently. Sometimes it's just position which matters, sometimes it's just about memory. So I would say that's, well, in the opening, in a sort of way, it's more luck factor, because, well, you push a captain and you mate a major. Well, that's unlucky, right? So it happens. There is more luck factor, and then it starts getting about, okay, investigation. What I know, what I want to know, inference. Starts the first attack, so you need to know how to move the pieces to get it to the right spot. Then you have to know how to reposition pieces, how to come defense, play well with the 2-square rule, bring the good piece at the correct place. Then you have a second positioning phase, second attack phase, and then endgame, which is, in my opinion, all about positioning. And of course memory. Remember all this, and hopefully you will be successful in all your games. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon for the next tutorial.